Welcome to Module 1. The theme is shapes. In this module, we will see in lesson number 1 the basics. You will have exercises, which is the patch grid. You will have the solution to those exercises, but there will be an extra detailed solution PDF for that patch grid. In lesson number 2, we will see about the composition. The exercise will be imagining motifs. There will be a suggested solution to the imagining the motifs. And I have 2 extra bonuses for you. The first one is blank grids and the second one is cutout shapes. So let's start with lesson number 1, the basics. So where it all started. The American pioneers gave names to their blocks, making the exchanges easier and a better recognition of the motifs. They gave names inspired by the religion, such as David and Goliath, by history, the Mayflower, by geography, Wyoming Valley. Wyoming, very deep in my heart because I grew up in Riverton, Wyoming. Everyday life, nature, such as shooting star or animals. So let's have a closer look on how a block is set up before moving on to the shapes. Here is a 2-patch grid. How do I know this is a 2-patch grid? Because I can divide it. How do I do so? The white triangle with the purple triangle make a square. So if I trace a line along the triangle, that separates the motif into 2. Here is a 3-patch grid. So how do I know this? Because on this motif, you don't go with the large triangle. You go with the top part. Trace a line along the white triangle. That's 1. Then we trace a line along the pink square. And finally, we have our 3-patch grid. As you can see, it's divided in 3 columns. Now, let's give a try for a 4-patch grid. So here, on this motif, I'm going to start tracing a line along the left triangle. Then I'm going to trace my line along the pink square. Now, on the right-hand side, you have that big purple square. So you just go underneath. And then you trace along, again, the pink square. And so your block is divided into 4, as you can see. So it's a 4-patch grid. Now, let's give it a try with another 4-patch grid. If you look at this shape, you would think it's a 3-patch because I have potentially 2 lines that I can put through. One over here along the left rectangle, and then the other one over there along the right rectangle. So for thought, this would be a 3-patch grid. But when dividing the pattern, always make the columns the same size. So here, the middle rectangle needs to be divided into 2. And so I do get a 4-patch grid. Now, if I were to say this is a 3-patch grid and I were to make it, well, unfortunately, this is what I would get. So let's move on to a 5-patch grid. So I would divide this by lines along my top squares. Then I would put lines along the middle square. And so, as you can see, my block is all divided. So it's a 5-patch grid. Let's move on to a 6-patch grid. So once again, I'm going to divide on the sides. So on each edges. Then I divide again on the next piece. And then the last line that I can trace is in the middle. So if you count the amount of columns, you have a 6-patch grid. So Now, what I have for you is an exercise. So you have 36 blocks, you give it a go, you divide them, trace your lines horizontally or vertically, whichever way is, I trace everything vertically, but you trace them as you feel fit because they're all squares, they're all equal, the same amount of columns and the same amount of lines. So you write down what you think this is, and then you will have the solutions. Some of them are a bit more complicated. So what I did is I did a PDF where I have really broken down the solution for you if you want to have a look.